SABC, host broadcaster of the G20 South Africa 2025.
And welcome back to the Nasrec Expo Centre, the home of South Africa's G20 Leaders Summit. And of course, the sun setting on our presidency as South Africa of the G20. And of course, next up will be the United States, followed by the UK. And that means South Africa will then form the troika with them going forward for the next year. But we haven't quite concluded things yet. Still a bit of work to be done here by the leaders at Nasrec, as well as us in the media and the analysts who are here to help us make sense of all of these developments. And we've got you covered with our reporters as well as the host broadcaster, that's SABC. And let's take you down to the floor once again, because it's not only us as the South African journalists beaming this to you live, but of course we have very many visitors. Yesterday we heard from GCIS that they had accredited some 1,500 journalists from across the world. So let's take you down to Chriselda Lewis, who's speaking to some of our guests. Morning, Chriselda.
Well, a very good morning to you once again, SK. And indeed, those 1,500 journalists would have the responsibility of telling their audiences in these different nations that are covering this G20 Leaders Summit what is important. Obviously, the audiences are going to be different. So what stories do they tell? What information is it that they're looking for that will be relevant for their audiences as well? So this is where most of the journalists have been sitting around to ensure that once it's time for them to go live, they would move from here and go to the studios like where you are sitting as well. Quite a huge area that has been set aside for the media, given that there's also a very huge media contingent who's got to tell the story to the different nations that are here, even countries that are not part of that G20. And I'm going to bring in one of those journalists now from the continent, and I'm going to bring in Sharon. She is from Kenya, and she's going to tell us how she's been maneuvering the past couple of days. Sharon, thank you so much for agreeing to speak to us. How important is the story for your audience in Kenya?
First, I'm so happy that I'm here. It's my first time covering the G20, and I will say this is so big for Africa. South Africa hosting the G20 in this continent speaks a lot about Africa. And I'm so happy that whatever they are talking about, the solidarity, equality, and all these things, these are the things that affect Africa. So coming here to actually spread the message and reach out the audience entirely in the world, it's just like voicing out Africa needs. Not everyone could come here to speak about it, but I'm glad that we are here to say it. I'm from Kenya, and we have our own issues that are actually in the same theme, or actually in the same thing with the theme. And I'm so happy that we are here to let them know that they are going to be heard at one point or another. Maybe it's not now, maybe it's not right now, but at one point, all this is going to be fruitful.
And how have you had to tailor the message for it to be relevant for the audience in Kenya? I mean, audiences are different. So in Kenya, you would need to tell the story so that the general public is able to understand the importance of what this big summit is in South Africa, but how it will also benefit Africans.
Normally, I think in journalistic ways, we need to have a lame language. So there's someone who doesn't understand what is G20. So you need to break down, G20 is this and this and this. And the fact is, why is South Africa hosting? Is it the only country that is here? South Africa is representing the whole African countries. So the matters that are being discussed here, they are going to bring an impact entirely to our continent, because African Union is part of this, and all the African countries are under the African Union. So we are so happy that at the end of the day, we need to break down each and every detail, especially on the declaration that's going to come right now, or even after this. They need to understand what is this, what is coming up. So we need to use that lame language for them to understand what is 1, 2, 3. What have they said from here to this and this, especially in climate matters. So they need to know, because we are the most people being affected. And yeah, doing that is not an easy job. You need to actually read their minds, or try to make sure that they understand each and every detail at every other point when you speak to them, either through a newspaper, either through any video. You need to make sure that you break it down by yourself for them to understand this.
And did you find that there was an interest or even a general understanding of what was taking place in South Africa? I mean, you have these leaders of these great nations that have descended on South Africa, but is there an understanding back home of exactly what's happening here and what the impact will mean for them ultimately?
There is, because when you're in Twitter, you will see people responding and people commenting. And that tells you that they are understanding this. Twitter is the most influential part of what we are using to disseminate the message. So the moment you put a post or you actually put your story down there, they are always disengaging and they're trying to understand, what does this mean? What did you mean by this? So even that engagement tells you that these people are understanding what you're saying. So even with the leaders and the information being given out there, we are the voice for the audience, and we just need to make them understand everything. Yeah.
Sharon, I hope I got your surname right. Nakola. Sharon Nakola, thank you very much. It was great to meet you, and thank you very much indeed. All the best with the remainder of your work, and thank you very much for speaking to us here on SABC News. It's a pleasure. Thanks. Sharon Nakola, just one of the journalists from here, the African continent, who is covering the G20 Leaders Summit, and she breaks it down quite well. While, Sakina, you'll speak to analysts and you will speak to a number of other guests about the importance of this. Remember how important the pen and the microphone is to take this message to the different nations, whether they're G20 countries or whether they're not G20 countries, to spread the message. For journalists who are here, is for them to break down the message of what has come out of this G20 Leaders Summit and make the viewers in every single country understand. So a very important role.
Indeed, Chriselda, and thank you so much for that perspective. And I think, Sharon literally underscores why this is not just a South African G20 presidency, but South Africa made it an African G20 presidency.
Yeah.
And nice to hear the sentiments from our fellow Africans.
And it's incredibly important. And I absolutely love what she was saying about making it relevant to the people, because, the reality is that when you do get behind these closed doors, the discussions are so high level and so sort of out of our control, but the reality is everything that's discussed there affects us as a globe, as a world, and that's why when you have Africa as a focal point, it is a massive thing, and it's up to the media, it's up to those reporting it, and I think Chriselda and her guests put it up very, very closely, that this is something that we need to get across as a message.